We are a week into Donald Trump's presidency, and he's already begun his promise to have mass deportations. Now, in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what all of this means and focus specifically on this idea of who's here illegally, who is here legally, and try to help us understand who we think Donald Trump should go after with these mass deportations and where the line should be drawn for folks that he shouldn't go after. Now, at a high level, there is broad public support for deporting folks who are here illegally. According to an Ipsos poll, 66% of Americans support the mass deportation of people who are in this country illegally. Now, there is also broad disapproval of deporting people from this country who are here legally, with only 11% of Americans supporting that. So it seems pretty clear, right? If Donald Trump and his administration stick to just deporting people here illegally, he will maintain broad public support. And if they cross the line and start to deport people who are here legally, they will lose that broad public support. But it's not that simple. The definition between legal and illegal is far from black and white, and how the Trump administration defines that, who they include in their mass deportation orders, is going to go a long way to deciding what kind of process this is, and if us, the American people, should be proud of it and support it, or if we should criticize it and condemn it. Let's get into it. Now, according to a variety of sources, the best estimate for the amount of people living in this country without legal status or with just temporary protective status is about 14 million people. Now, this is the pool of people that, generally speaking, the Trump administration has targeted for deportations. Now, as we dive into that, we'll see that some of these folks are obvious candidates, and some of these folks become less obvious candidates depending on the current status that they have. So let's start with the obvious candidates for deportation. 655,000 of these individuals have a criminal charge or conviction against them. Another 1.4 million have already had a judge order and issue final deportation orders for them. So this is probably where Trump is going to start. And if he limits his mass deportations to just these individuals, I highly doubt there's going to be any significant pushback. But it's when we start to look beyond this group of people is where things start to get a little more complicated. Now, of that total 14 million group, 60% have no legal status, while the other 40% have some form of temporary permission to be here in this country. Now, the most common temporary status are people waiting on asylum claims. Now, these are individuals who crossed the border illegally, came across here without permission, turned themselves into Border Patrol agents, and then claimed asylum. Now, while they are awaiting their hearing to determine if asylum will be granted, they are allowed to stay in the United States according to our current law. This hearing is supposed to occur within 180 days of their asylum claim being filed. However, we have a big backlog in our court system, and the current average wait time for these asylum hearings is 4 years. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, are these individuals here illegally? Yes, they crossed the border illegally. They crossed the border without permission, but they are staying in the country with permission of the federal government as they await their hearing. So now let's look at a different group. People here with TPS, otherwise known as temporary protective status. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to lump a group of people into the single category, even though some of them may technically have a different status. Now, the Biden administration granted temporary status to a variety of groups, including Ukrainians fleeing from war, Afghanis who helped us in our war effort, Cubans and Haitians, Venezuelans, and Nicaraguans who are fleeing terrible conditions in their country. These individuals have a temporary protective status granted to them by the U.S. government to allow them to be here in this country. So the question poses, are these people here illegally? Obviously, I think it's clear that they are not. But what if the Trump administration just decides overnight to revoke their status? Are they now here illegally, and should they then be deported by the Trump administration? This is where it becomes a little more complicated than just simply going after people who are here legally or illegally. We welcomed these people in. In many instances, like the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, they are contributing to our economy and are contributing to our society. Yet with a swipe of a pen, Donald Trump and his administration can revoke their status, making their presence here illegal, sending them back to their home countries where they face very dangerous situations. Is that the right thing to do? Well, that's up to you to decide. And so as we can see here, the question of legal versus illegal is a bit more complicated than it often appears in the common discussion, common rhetoric around this issue. During the campaign, when Trump was talking about mass deportations, when the RNC was holding up signs with mass deportations, numbers like 14, 20, and 30 million were thrown around. If that's the pool of people that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, the man in charge of his immigration policy, are going after, that is going to include asylum seekers, people with TPS, DACA recipients, and a variety of other undocumented individuals who are here with the permission of the federal government. Should these people be candidates for deportation under Donald Trump's mass deportation plans, or should we expect and request or even demand that he just limits his actions to those individuals with criminal records and whom judges have already ordered should be deported?